everybody, and thanks for coming tonight. This is the regular meeting of the Twinsburg Board of Education. I would like to call to order for Wednesday, January 21st, 2015. Mr. Aho, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Stuver?
Here.
Mrs. Kane Criswell?
Here.
Mrs. Davis?
Here.
Mr. Felber?
Here.
Mrs. Turl Waldron?
Here.
I'd like to ask everyone to please stand and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Full house tonight. Welcome. Thanks for attending. I would like to highlight first just a couple of items that are on the agenda, just so that you can note them. First off, in the communications section, you'll note that Mrs. Wursler will be providing an update tonight regarding the Dodge Intermediate status. Our Dodge building was once again redesignated as an Ohio school to watch, and it's a very great honor for that building for the students and staff at Dodge. So that will be one of our report outs tonight under communications. And also in our administrative reports, Mrs. Farthing will be providing an update regarding the ever-changing landscape of assessments. January is School Board Recognition Night, and I'm going to deviate from that for just a second, and I would like to recognize our superintendent and treasurer for a couple of recent achievements. Mrs. Powers has just recently, this week, been selected to serve on the board of the Greater Cleveland School Superintendents Association, and also was appointed to the board for the Ohio Schools Council. It's a wonderful professional opportunity for Mrs. Powers, and it is a great benefit to our district to have a voice at the table with these organizations. So nicely done, Mrs. Powers, and thank you. Mr. Aho continues to lead this district as our chief financial hawk, as I like to call him. And recently, Mr. Felber and I met with Mr. Aho and the state auditors, and we conducted a post-audit review. The state auditors were in back in November, December. And I'm pleased to announce that the district has once again received a clean audit from the state. And I was going to say that the official report will be released soon, and it just came into my inbox as I was sitting here tonight. So we'll have Mr. Aho provide a summary report at an appropriate time here when he's ready to do so. I would like to just remind people that the school board is directly responsible for the employment of the superintendent and the treasurer. These are the two primary folks that we work with, and we establish goals and policies with the superintendent and treasurer, and then they work with their respective staffs to manage the district on a daily basis. Together, the superintendent and treasurer represent our district's primary executive leadership team, and they are responsible for managing and directing the day-to-day operations of this district, which comprises of almost 4,300 students, almost 500 employees, and a budget of over $42 million. Just a reminder, the Board of Education are elected by the community. We're advocates and representatives of you, the voters and the taxpayers, and our purpose is one of governance and not management. The board is a policy-making body. Members of the board are chief advisors to the superintendent and treasurer on community attitudes, and it's important that we select good people such as these professionals to manage our district. So this evening, I just wanted to take the opportunity, even though it's School Board Appreciation Month, and just look at the two folks that we lean on so heavily and say thank you to their dedication to our school district. Tonight, I'd like to welcome the staff, students, and families from Wilcox Elementary, Dodge Intermediate, and our Twinsburg High School. I know you're here tonight for some special recognition, so without further ado, I would like to turn the meeting over to Mrs. Powers for the superintendent's report.
Well, thank you, Mr. Stuver. Good evening, Board of Education. Good evening, families. Thank you for being here this evening. I know it's the chilly and cold and snowy January evening, and it's always great when our students come out and are recognized here in front of our Board of Education. But greater than that, because we're broadcast on Cable 9 TV, you know, if you're sitting at home, and we have so many of our residents who aren't directly related to our school district, but can celebrate with us through TV because we're able to broadcast all the great things that our students do here in our schools. As Mr. Stuver indicated, this month is School Board Recognition Month, and And as Mr. Stuber was talking, I'm thinking, this is the 5th district that I've worked for, and I have to tell you that for every single one of those districts, they've all been led by wonderful boards of education, but our board here in the Twinsburg City School District is a cut above the rest. They are truly dedicated to the boys and girls that go to our school district, and also dedicated to make sure that they represent the adults who voted them into the Board of Education. So you can be confident that your votes are going along very well, that the Board of Education is very much interested in the very best educational opportunities for our kids. And beside that, they're very interested in good financial stewardship, to make sure that the dollars that we all contribute to the school district through our taxes are really being used the most efficiently and effective way to be able to provide the best opportunities for our boys and girls. So thank you, Board of Education. And you know, I could stand up here and say a lot of things about the board, but really we wanted to have some folks come forward that really have something much more heartfelt than I could possibly say. So I'd like to introduce at this moment 3 high school students. We have Kevin and Nicole and Kyle, who are going to present to you, Board of Education, the beginning of a wonderful presentation.
Hello guys, my name is Kevin McCarthy and I'm the Twinsburg High School Student Council President. This evening is one of celebration. Tonight, we celebrate our Twinsburg City School District School Board members in honor of School Board Appreciation Month. In keeping with our district-sponsored PBIS initiative, we are always reminded of how our community, schools, personnel, and students must remain Tiger Strong. Our school board members spend countless hours behind the scenes making sure we remain as strong as we can be. Tonight, THS together with Dodge and Wilcox students want to honor our school board and remind our students and community just how many tasks are accomplished by these members. We celebrate our themes related to our PBIS initiative, which are be caring, be respectful, and be responsible. First, please welcome our Wilcox student guests as they talk about being caring.
Dakota, Baldwin, Bilgy, Elias,
And our theme was to be
caring.
caring. Go ahead, tell us about how our board is caring for us.
Because they give us nice classrooms, nice offices, and nice tables, and nice seats. Being nice and safe.
Good job, guys. We focused on the board and how they care for us and our students. Next.
Next, let me introduce our Dodge kids as they talk about being respectful.
Good evening. We have Dasani Holt, Dwight Harvey, and Abigail Weisberg.
Our board shows RESPECT. R is for recognition. Our board recognizes students and staff throughout the year.
E is for excellence. The board stands for excellence in our school. S is for support. The board supports Twinsburg City School. P is for professional. They are professional.
E is for extra. The board goes the extra mile. C is for caring. The board cares about the community. And T is for teamwork. The board makes a great team.
Last but not least, let me introduce my good friends Nicole Ostrowski and Kyle Widmer as they talk about being responsible. Sorry.
The school board has lots of responsibilities. They are very involved in everything we do at the school, like taking care of the calendar and monitoring the budget, fiscal tasks, being involved in what kind of technology we have, and just really focusing on the curriculum we get at our schools.
This presentation is in honor of all the tasks that our board members complete on a daily basis, but it is just a snapshot of what they actually do all the time. I could only imagine how long I'd be standing up here on this platform if I had to name all those tasks.
Boys and girls, we surely do appreciate you saying such great things about our Board of Education, and I think that Mrs. Turl Waldron has a pin for you in a little thank you for being here this evening and presenting your thoughts about wonderful things that our Board of Education does each and every day to support the boys and girls of our school district. So thank you very much. And then Mr. Asti and Mr. Holland, if you would escort the students out to the main lobby, I would like Mr. Welker to take a nice picture for our website of the boys and girls as they are this evening in their presentation. So thank you very much. And guys, thanks again for being here tonight. Oh, okay.
Thank you very much to the students, and Mrs. Powers, thanks for having them come. It's always nice when the students stand up here and do this kind of stuff because it's truly a great reminder for us to what this is all about when they're here. So thank you for bringing them in tonight.
Absolutely, and thank you for the families that came out with their students this evening. We appreciate your continued support. I have a couple more remarks in my superintendent's comments this evening, Board of Education. The next one is sort of a commercial announcement because we are just now getting underway with a pretty important project here in our school district. And one of the goals that our Board of Education has set forth for the year is for the completion of a facilities assessment so that a strategic plan could be developed about our grounds and our facilities. And in the coming month of February, we're going to be hosting a number of focus groups, and we need to ask our community members to please come forward and to provide for us your vision of our school district's grounds and buildings, facilities, as we move forward in time. You know that if you think about classrooms that we went to school in and the classrooms our students are going to school in today, and then think about what our classrooms should look like 5 and 10 and 15 and 20 years down the line, I think that we have to continue to improve and continue to provide the very best for our students. It's going to take all of us to be able to put together this plan because you might be thinking about something that the board might not be thinking about, or the administrative team or our staff. And so we have a couple of opportunities for our community members to come out together and to provide their ideas about our facilities and our grounds. The first is actually going to be on February 11th, and this one is meant for our senior citizens. Mr. Welker and I will be going to the Twinsburg Senior Center on Wednesday, February 11th at 9:30 in the morning, and we're going to engage our senior citizens here in town about their thinking about our buildings and our grounds and our facilities. And then the next one is meant for any member of our community who has an interest in coming out, and that will be on Tuesday, February 24th at 7 o'clock p.m., and that will be at the RBC cafeteria. So if you have an interest in offering your ideas, your suggestions, your thoughts, your vision for our school district's buildings, grounds, and facilities, that's a great opportunity. Tuesday, February 24th at 7 o'clock p.m. in the cafeteria at RBC. Please do come out. If you are unable to make it on either the 11th or the 24th and you have some ideas, please give me a call, send us an email, because everyone has an important opinion about what you'd like to see happen here in our school district and what you believe we need to provide for our kids moving forward in time. And then finally, I would like to mention that Board of Education, you know, last board meeting we had 4 outstanding students present stress kits for students who are preparing for all of these assessments. Rebecca and Aiden and Donald and Bella were here. They're part of that Lego League. Well, I just want to give you an update. They competed in the first tournament last Saturday. They won the Research Award and the People's Choice Award, which is fabulous. And Mrs. Turner and Mrs. Mold reported that although they're not going to be moving forward in the competition at the state level, that they were so poised and beyond their years in being able to present their project to the judges. So we are just so pleased with those 4 students. Next year's theme will be Trash Trek. And these kids are already figuring out a project to help resolve the idea behind Trash Trek. So congratulations to Rebecca and Aiden and Donald and Bella. We were so delighted that you were here last board meeting, and we're so pleased that you did so well in your competition, so congratulations. And then one more thing, tomorrow night is a pretty, or actually tomorrow afternoon is pretty important for our Great Expectations. You know, the competition season is upon us for Great Expectations and RBC Singers. And if you saw their show in the fall, it's all different. Tomorrow night they reveal their show, but at 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, they're going to be giving a special performance for all of our senior citizens in town. So if you are seeing this broadcast, or if you know somebody who's a senior and who would like to come out 4 o'clock tomorrow in the auditorium at RBC, Mrs. Taringo and the student council from THS will be hosting a little bit of light refreshments following the 4 o'clock performance. And then at 7 o'clock tomorrow night will be the community performance revealing the new competition show. So we're so excited for GE. You know, they're ranked 3rd in the country, and so we're looking forward for an excellent competition season this year. Again, 4 o'clock tomorrow and 7 o'clock tomorrow at RBC. The reason why they're not at the high school is because the community theater is set up at the high school in their auditorium, so we needed to go off site for tomorrow's performance. So thank you to Mrs. Tringo and Mr. Lenu for making that happen, and we're just really excited about this opportunity. So enough about me and about all these wonderful things. I would like to ask Ms. Villa to come forward. We have some outstanding students from Wilcox Primary School to celebrate this afternoon, or this evening, I should say. It's afternoon, evening. My goodness, time flies. You're up. Okay, boys and girls, if we call your name, please come forward. And Ms. Villa and Mr. Atzi are here, and they have beautiful certificates for you. And Mrs. Turrell Waldron has a pin on behalf of the Board of Education. And once you shake hands with Ms. Villa and Mr. Asti and Mrs. Turrell Waldron, Mr. Welker will help you line up here along the stage. Please stay up here until all the boys and girls are recognized, because we want to give your if they'd like to take a picture of the whole group, okay? Isabella is a wonderful girl and student who does very well academically. She is a kind, generous, and a very hard-working student. She is always willing to assist every child in her class that may not be sure of directions or with completing their own work. Mrs. Linux says that Isabella is a joy to have in her classroom. Congratulations. Next, from Mrs. Littler's class, we have Caroline Cohen. Caroline is a great role model in her first grade class. She respects others, participates in class discussions, and strives for excellence in all academic areas. Caroline has a positive attitude toward learning. Mrs. Littler is extremely proud of all the progress that she has made so far this year. Keep it up, Caroline. Next, from Mr. Scalero's class, we have Brody Elias. There are many reasons why Brody has been nominated. He is polite and respectful to adults. He is helpful and friendly to all of his peers. He has a great sense of humor and is always smiling. He is always well behaved. All of these things are true about Brody, but the main reason Mr. Scalero has nominated him is because he is a hard worker who gives 100% effort to everything that he does. Thanks, Brody. You help make Wilcox rock. Next, from Ms. Dunn's class, of a kind. She is smart, respectful, sensitive, and beautiful both inside and out. She always pays attention, always follows directions, and treats other students the way she would like to be treated. Wilcox rocks because of Annabelle. Next, from Miss Lipnos' class, we have Robert Herndon. Robert is a wonderful young man. He is a true role model in the classroom and all around Wilcox. He is a caring young man. Robert has been seen helping children with special needs and put on their winter clothing and helping them get to lunch safely. He does all of this without being asked. He is the classroom mailman, and he is the go-to helper all the time. Robert always has a smile on his face and is happy to be at school. Robert is a joy to work with every day. Robert is like a Wilcox superhero. Thank you, Robert, for being a super tiger. Next, from Mrs. Scalero's class, we have Madison Muth. Madison is a polite, respectful young lady. She demonstrates proper behavior every day. She is kind and helpful to all of her classmates. Madison is always raising her hand to participate and puts forth her best effort in all of her work. Madison has jumped 4 levels in her guided reading already this year. Wow. Madison, you rock. Mrs. Scalero is so happy that you are in her class. Keep up all the amazing work, Madison. And now we go on to our kindergarten boys and girls. From Mrs. Sutton's class, we have Dakota Baldwin. Dakota is such a joy to have in class. She is a great role model for her fellow students and is always trying her best. She accepts every challenge and always strives to do her best every day. She is polite, kind, respectful, and caring. Mrs. Sutton loves helping Dakota learn new things and is so proud of her. Dakota, you rock. From Mrs. Washington's class, we have Kira Blanley. Kira is a hard worker. She is an enthusiastic learner. She demonstrates behavior that sets a standard for our classroom. She always maintains a positive attitude when she is trying to accomplish something that may be difficult for her. We love having her in our classroom. From Mrs. Seidel's class, we have John Blust. John always tries his best and is a hard worker. He is kind to all of his classmates. He has really worked hard with his reading and writing. Way to go, John. You rock. From Mrs. Petras' class, we have Cole Caponelli. Well, I don't see Cole, but let's talk about him. It says, Wilcox rocks because of Cole Caponelli. Cole is an awesome student and friend. He always completes his work and does his very best. He is kind to his classmates and often helps when needed. Mrs. Petras is so happy to have Cole rock in her classroom. Next, from Mrs. Troy's class, we have Matt Billman. Wilcox rocks because of Max. Every day, Max comes to school with a big smile on his face. He is always helpful, kind to others, and is a great friend to everyone. He does his best work and has a super attitude about school. Max is a fantastic role model and a great student. And last but not least, from Ms. Tursek's class, we have Emily Wrights. Emily is such a sweet girl and a pleasure to have in class. She has been working very hard this school year and has shown tremendous growth both in academics and work skills. Mrs. Tershak is so proud of you. Emily, you rock. Thank you for being a great addition to our classroom. Please join me in congratulating all of these wonderful boys and girls. Okay, boys and girls, put your very best smiles on because I know your moms and dads would like a nice photo of you. I'm sorry. Thank you. You may be seated.
Boys and girls, we are so proud of you, and I know that you and your families want to stay and hear about all the great students at Dodge and THS. So if you take your seats, I think I'm passing it along to Dodge. Oh, okay, to the high school.
We're going to ask Mrs. Stringle to come forward, and we have some outstanding students from Twinsburg High School, and we're going to learn something about their Tiger Strong program.
We do have our 6 students of the month that we'd like to introduce tonight. I brought Mr. Silverthorne, our assistant principal, up here. As you know, we've been doing this now since September, and basically to honor and to celebrate those students that just every day, they just do the right thing. And our teachers, little by little, are kind of like noticing that, and they do want to make sure that these students do get the recognition that they deserve. So tonight we have some special guests in the audience because I see their faces out there and parents with them. And so I'd like to start with Mr. Silverthorne. They're in alphabetical order, okay? They're not by grade. So Mr. Silverthorne.
Thank you. Mr. Rutkowski nominated Jay Buchanan, Jay's a freshman, for a Tiger Strong Award. Jay turned in a wallet that he found in the restroom area, and you might say, well, okay, big deal, but actually it was, and it was pretty incredible. It's something that I know in my time, never even could even imagine, but among other things, the wallet contained $450. And this young man had the courage and whatever you want to call it to turn it into the office, and he did the right thing. So we wanted to definitely recognize Jay Buchanan for such a noble thing that he did. Now, also, if you're like me, Mrs. Taringo, you might wonder, why does a high school student have $450? That's the first thing that I thought of. And we did investigate that a little bit, and here the student had just gotten paid for, like a month's work wherever he worked at. So it did make sense. So we'd like to recognize Jay. I don't think Jay could make it tonight, but we did want to recognize Jay.
I believe there was also a phone with the wallet as well. So that too, just a smartphone nowadays. So thank you, Javion, for doing that. Great.
Next, Mrs. Kurt nominated for Student of the Month, Tiger Strong, Hannah Cola. Mrs. Kurt says Hannah is a very bright, positive student who works very hard. She is very considerate of others around her, makes very good choices for herself and others. Hannah is a student who values doing things properly and likes to please. Hannah Cola, congratulations. Mrs. Drain nominated Chris Frazier. Mrs. Drain says Chris Frazier is a team player, noble, goal-oriented. He took the initiative to assume a huge role in extra responsibility in the foreign language food drive this year. He played instrumental part in its success. Very commendable because he didn't really get anything out of it other than helping people. He didn't do it for recognition or community service hours, but because he was genuinely, it was important to him. He's also a great student, very conscientious, very creative, and thinks outside the box. He's also very kind, caring, and helpful to his classmates. Chris Frazier.
Congratulations. And I told Chris I wanted him to stay up here. This is the T-shirt that all the students of the month receive, and he is, of course, THS Strong. So there he is. Thank you, Chris. I'll continue. I'd like to call Noah Luciano up here. Noah, come on up. I believe Noah is very deserving of being a Twinsburg Student of the Month. He is always willing to do anything asked of him in the classroom. He's always cooperative. Students in the classroom that are struggling. He comes to class every day with a cheerful attitude that definitely transfers to other students in the class. I definitely believe he fulfills the attributes of being this Tiger Strong leader in the school. That's from Mrs. Swinning, Noah. Noah did have the honor to. Noah is one of those kids that makes you realize why you teach. He is very respectful of everyone. He always has a smile on his face and is willing to go the extra mile to help someone out. As a father, I would be proud if my own son grew up to be the same person in high school that Noah is. And that's from Mr. Dubois. Congratulations, Noah. If I could ask Cameron Schwartz to come on up. Cameron. Okay. Miss Komet, sorry. In that he takes ownership of his learning and is always actively engaged in the lesson. A student like Cameron in my classroom reminds me of why I teach. He is a pleasure to have in the classroom and is genuinely interested in learning. His positive attitude and appreciative nature is an asset in the classroom. I am so fortunate to have him in my class. Ms. Komet. And last but not least, Jaden Tucker. I don't think Jalen, there he is. Congratulations, Jalen. Jalen is respectful, noble, Spanish 1. He is always respectful, hardworking, motivated, and stays on task. He volunteers and participates and puts forth a great effort, even with other students around him who may not be particularly motivated in Spanish, I think. And sometimes it's not the cool thing to do. He stands out as a leader, and he's a great peer role model in Spanish 1. Miss Drain would like to thank you. If I could, to help celebrate. Jalen, anyone?
My mom.
There she is. Mom's back there.
My mom, dad, and grandmother.
How about a wave out there? There they are.
I brought my best friend and someone I consider to be a little brother, Ethan.
There he is.
I brought my parents, my siblings, and my grandparents.
I brought my mom, my little brother Adam, and my dad.
Thank you for celebrating with us. These are our Tiger Strong Students of the Month. I'm going to take a picture there. Yeah. Were you okay? You got it? Thank you. Dodge.
Thank you, Twinsburg High School students. You make us proud every day, and you represent your high school so very well in so many different ways. And families, thank you for sharing your wonderful students with us. We're so delighted that they go to Twinsburg High School and represent our students and our school district so well, and again, so many different ways, so thank you. Board of Education, Mrs. Wursler was supposed to present a little bit of information about the redesignation of Dodge as an Ohio Schools to Watch. Unfortunately, she became ill today at work and had to go home, so I am very happy to substitute Mrs. Wursler with Mr. Hyam. So we're going to ask Mr. Hyam to come forward and to present this great news about Dodge being redesignated as an Ohio Schools to Watch. This is a big deal in the state of Ohio. And not only is it a state recognition, but Dodge will also be recognized on the national level in Washington, D.C. this coming June. So welcome, Mr. Hyam. This is great news, and thanks for being here.
Well, thank you for having us. Board of Education, thank you for allowing us to share a little bit about the House School to Watch program. Barb Werser wanted to be here. Unfortunately, she became ill, so like the Buckeyes, we're going to the backup. Hopefully I have success like the Buckeyes.
Next principal up.
So, to a little bit of a recap, I'm going to share a little bit about the House School to Watch program. It is a nationally program. We were designated in 2012, and a little bright news came to us last month about being redesignated. It is through the National Forum of Accelerated Middle Grade Reform, and basically what they're doing is they're looking to identify schools that produce results. And as you know, Dodge does a very good job of producing results in many aspects, not just through test scores, and that's something you're going to see in our presentation. There are currently over 350 School to Watch schools in 18 states in the United States, so it's a great honor to be part of that select few that are being recognized. And Dodge is actually one of only 20 schools in Ohio with this designation. So if you think about all the middle-level schools, the intermediate middle-level schools there are in the state of Ohio, it's a great honor. And quite honestly, to be redesignated is even more difficult because you have to come back in 3 years and prove that you're still doing the phenomenal things that you did initially. And Ms. Farthing, oh, I'm sorry. So what they do is they look at 4 domains. The academic excellence, as we have produced, that we do extremely well with that. Developmental responsiveness, social equity, and do we have an organizational process and structures that support all students in our building. And I would like to invite all to come and see the academic excellence that we have in our building. We are very strong with our professional learning communities. We have co-taught classrooms that are very successful. We have a wide range of project-based instruction that we're putting in place that we're very excited about. How are we developmentally responsible and responsive to our students? And that's through the Response Intervention Program, our RTI program, that we're very proud of. We did start the Unity program, which is our OBEUS program that we are very proud of, that we are working with our students on bullying prevention. And we also are meeting the needs of our students every day through many interventions and enrichment opportunities. The next key is social equity. And this is really about every student having the opportunity to have high-quality teachers, resources, and learning opportunities. And thank to you for all the support you give to our buildings, to our district, to allow us to have co-taught classroom, to allow us to have the resources, the new 2 computer labs that are truly beneficial to what we're trying to do to guide our students to the 21st century and the learning that they need to do. We have taken a look at the way we set up our building. We are in a CUB setting. We are a building of 1,000 students, and whenever we talk to colleagues or friends, and we often say how many students are in the building, we say 1,000. You get that look like, that's an intermediate school. That's what I'm used to at a high school level. But we're very successful with our CUB belief. It's like a small school initiative where we are looking at building relationship and having critical friends for our students. And we have instituted our looping programs that have been very successful, and we're finding more and more success in going to that even more. So truly, what does this mean for Twinsburg City Schools? And what it means is that in 2012, after taking a full year of self-study, and that's one of the powerful things about this program is that it's a self-study. It's a reflection on what we're doing well, some of our challenges. And 3 years ago, there were some challenges that we needed to address. And it's exciting when they came back 3 years later to see some of the things that we implemented and seeing some changes I'm not going to stand here and tell you that we don't have some challenges that we still need to work on, but we are trying to meet the needs of our students every day. So this past fall, we reapplied to be redesignated, which is a great honor. If you look on the website, many schools are not redesignated for various reasons. So it's a great honor to be able to redesignate as a Ohio School to Watch, which is, as Ms. Powers said, a national school to watch. So why did we apply? And quite honestly, because we do great things at Dodge, we wanted to take an honest look at what we do. I think we get caught up in the moment of what's next, and we don't sit back and reflect on what we're doing and why we're doing it. And this redesignation allows us to really focus with input from our staff, from community members, parents, central office, to give us some insight on some things that we need to look at a little closer, and we did do that. And quite honestly, it's a time to step by and get some credit that we deserve, some of the hard work that we do. So once again, it's a time to reflect. We are doing a lot of right things, but at the same time, there are some things that we need to build on. And it's one of those things that you can never be satisfied until we're at the top. So here's a few statements, and I apologize for the screen a little bit too big. Some of the feedback pieces that we got from our site visit was they had a school-based collaboration was evident when they would go in. They could just see collaboration in all different arenas in the building. A positive building culture, and that's one of the things that we pride ourselves on. Strong building leadership. And they noticed teacher empowerment was obvious. Teachers were involved, they were part of the process, and with that, students become part of the process, and they have a voice. So as Ms. Powers said, the great news is that we were redesignated for Ohio School to Watch in 2015. So it's a great honor. I truly appreciate the opportunity just to share a small snapshot of what this program is about. It is exciting to share and talk with other schools around the state and the nation about what we're doing and why we're doing it. So, thank you.
You know, Board, it makes it look so easy when you put together a prezi, as Mr. Hyman, Mr. Holland, and Mrs. Wursler did, but there's so much work that goes behind the scenes, and the Dodge staff was right there with the administrators, pulling together the self-study, providing a lot of evidence of what happens every day at Dodge, and they went through the evaluation process. I think that was in November, and then in December, right before the holidays, we heard that they were redesignated. So congratulations, Doug and Ron, and to Barb and the entire staff. Boy, talk about being Tiger strong. There you have it. And thank you for being here this evening and pinch hitting for Mrs. Wursler, too. We appreciate your presence. That concludes my comments.
Thank you, Mrs. Powers. For those who would like to go, if you've got homework or whatnot, this would be a good time to do so. You're welcome to stay. But we'll give you a second to depart.
Blurry picture of Hannah.
Yes.
No. It's one of the girls' friends. I got a blurry picture. Yeah, it was.
Thank you again, Mrs. Powers. It's always great having the kids and the students here and hearing the
is.
building highlights. Credit well deserved. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We'll move to committee reports, and I would like to lead off with Mr. Shebeck, who has patiently been waiting, and we'll get a CVCC update. I know this is not new to you, Steve. You know how this all works, but you...
Hey, I take no offense in that nobody wanted to stay for my report, but but they can catch it online. So that's good.
There you go.
Okay. Just wanted to say happy Board Recognition Month.
Thank you. And the same to you.
Well, thank you. But no, sincerely, as being a resident now, a longtime resident and a former school board member, I am so pleased to see the transition was smooth. You guys have not missed a beat. we are still doing great things, and you guys are still providing great leadership. So thank you for your service. I know how committed you have to be to do this, and I know the time it takes, but no, really, thank you. I got to tell you, I've not heard anything to the contrary out in the community. It's like myself, Mr. Crosby, and Mr. Andrews never left. You guys filled in great, so thanks. Keep up the good work, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Beginning with my report, we'll get the commercials out of the way first. How's that? There's going to be some mailers coming out, and the one that I really want to everybody to be aware of is on February 7th, there's going to be a STEM career showcase at the Career Center. And, you know, STEM's like the hot word now. And for those in the audience that don't know, it's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. This is going to be for all students and parents from grades 7 through 12. Particularly middle schoolers, I think, would be more interested in this. But if you're some high school kids thinking about career and technical, this is a great program as well. We're going to have interactive panel presentations so you can explore STEM career options, hear from professionals, learn why companies will be seeking STEM knowledge and skills in the future. This really is what they're saying is the future of the workforce. So that's a good opportunity. There's career assessments. You can find out what STEM careers are right for you. Take a brief online assessment, help you identify your skills and interests. Demonstrations and activities, observe demonstrations sponsored by leading companies, participate in hands-on activities, and talk to STEM professionals one-on-one so you can actually meet and greet. We'll also have an innovation corner showcasing some of the stuff that's the great innovations from Northeastern Ohio, and talk to experts about how they turn their ideas into reality. And there'll also be a college corner, so you can talk to colleges about STEM careers and what the next step is if you do career and technical education or if you're looking into the STEM areas. So that should be coming out in the mail, but I know my mail is not very reliable.
I got one.
So
Yeah, mine came today as well.
Okay, great,
Yeah.
great. Want to make sure those are getting out because mine did not come. Also, the adult education catalog is coming out for spring and summer, so if you're interested in that, so that concludes my commercials. We had our annual meeting last Thursday, our organizational meeting and first meeting of the year. Pretty uneventful. We only have one new board member this year. Mrs. Heidi Doldezal from North Royalton was not reelected to the board. They actually did their interviews and picked a gentleman by the name of Russ Wells, who is a former industrial arts teacher for North Royalton Schools. He's retired, and he spends his retirement flipping houses. So he has his own business doing that. And it's interesting because when we first started the summer camp programs at the Cuyahoga Valley Career Center, he actually taught some of the summer camp programs. So he's familiar with the Career Center. He was selected by North Royalton to represent them, so he is their new 3-year representative to the district. So we didn't have a lot of shakeup. We had 4 seats that were open and three returning board members. So that was kind of nice. We conducted our organizational meeting, and Mrs. Kathleen Mack, who's our representative from Brecksville Broadview Heights, is our board president this year. And our own Mark Curtis is our board vice president this year. So congratulations to him. He's stepping forward and jumping right on in. So good for him. And he's also going to serve as our student achievement liaison. Mark will be serving on the finance committee and the curriculum committee, and I'll be serving on buildings and grounds and finance as well. And that was pretty much our organizational meeting, other than all the normal stuff that you guys do, we have to do too, so got that out of the way. Really, it wasn't much going on other than, you know, with the break and everything. Now we'll be ramping up with all of our career and technical competitions, so Mark and I will try and bring forth the students from our district that have competed and placed and kind of keep you apprised of their successes, so we'll be moving forward with that. One of the neat things that's happening, which we'll be rolling out next year to all the associate districts, but they're piloting this year with Cuyahoga Heights and Brecksville Broadview Heights, is we're doing a online enrollment pilot. So the students who want to enroll at Cuyahoga Valley Career Center can do so online along with their parents and electronically sign their application, so we won't have to have all these papers printed and distributed to all the districts. So far it's working out real well. Once they sign, that gets submitted and gets automatically forwarded to the guidance counselor at the respective home district. Then all the transcripts and everything that need to be matched up with that can be done electronically at the home district, and then everything can get submitted to the Career Center. The neat thing about this is this was done in-house at no cost. We realized we had all the back-end support to make this happen. Kelly Buccini, who does all our enrollment coordination, was looking, I think, to get rid of shuffling papers. But it was a great project. She worked on it last year, and then we were able to roll it out this year, the pilot for 2 districts, and the next year we'll be doing it for all 8 of our districts. So that was a nice thing. Saves money, no cost. It's always a good thing. The other thing is Career and Technical Education Week is February 2nd through the 6th. That's how we celebrate what they do at the Career Center. So they're going to have a few events going on, but they kind of celebrate every day and do some things in the building. But the 2 highlights is on February 3rd is Bring Your Parent to School Day. Students have the ability to bring their parents to school, and they can sit through the program and kind of get to see what their students are learning. And then on the 6th, they're doing a blood drive for Red Cross. So any of the students that are able to donate blood will be donating blood. And that's always been very successful for us. So those are kind of a couple highlights there. One of the other highlights that happened over the break was we got our preliminary report from the Advanced Education Accreditation Association, or they call it Advanced Ed. And as we talked earlier, we were talking about the high school graduation requirements, and if you graduate from a career and technical education center, it has to be from a credentialed program. Some of those programs naturally have credentials, like the auto mechanics. You will graduate with your ASE certification, so that's a credential. What we wanted to do was make sure that we didn't have to go out and find a credential for each program if they didn't already have one. So what we did was looked at an umbrella approach, and we actually we were going to accredit the entire Career Center for high school education through Advanced Ed, which is a combination of, used to be the North Central Association, the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools, and then it was expanded to include the Northwest Accreditation Commission. And there's acronyms that go with it. Anyhow, this is kind of like similar to an ISO audit, to put people in the business world perspective, where they'll come in and basically go through your processes, procedures, and everything to see, are you doing what you say you do? And do you have the documentation to back it up? We had very high remarks to the extent that they have never seen some of the systems in place that they saw in place at a career and technical education high school environment. So it was very good. Of course, they had to find something to write up as a negative. It was pretty minor, and it had to do something with documentation, I think. It was a documentation, but it was real insignificant. But we were really pleased about that because now we will have an umbrella accreditation for all of our programs. If we run them as we'd say we run them. So we don't, some of the programs, if we don't have an accreditation, that could be a problem. So this was a real, they're very high on this. I mean, I could read you the report, but I think it's 68 pages. But real feather in our cap. And then the last thing that we were working on, I don't know if Mrs. Power shared with you, but there is a requirement to put career and technical education offerings in the middle school level, thanks to a change in the Ohio Revised Code, 3313.90, if you want to know. You don't have to have a program, but you have to offer it. There has to be an offer. So what the associate districts, superintendents, and superintendent of the Career Center got together and trying to figure out how can we do this without having to do it in our home districts, and how can we utilize CVCC. And there's 3 different options they're exploring. I'm not going to get into details because we could get a waiver if we want to. Some districts are already doing it. I think if you do like a family science program, that qualifies under the law. So, but our thought is with the RAMTEP program to actually use that as our qualification, because as we've said before, that comes with a mobile component that we can roll out, and we can bring that out to the middle school and actually do some programs online, at home, instead of having students come to the Career Center. One of the options was actually starting up a STEM program. So a bunch of different things, but I think it's probably too early to even delve into all those details. There's a lot of good discussion. It was kind of a brainstorming session that they had, and a lot of good ideas came out of that. So we are working on that. So if anybody wants to know, hey, are you going to be in compliance with the law? That's being handled by your superintendents, all the superintendents, and the superintendent of the Career Center. And also, along with that, I know know there's been some interest of trying to get middle school activity as well, and I think we're going to look at that with the Ramtech program, and hopefully that groundbreaking for our building will occur in March. So, and that's all I have. Any questions?
Just a couple. Again, thanks for your service as well.
No problem.
The accreditation, are there other programs, even though you're under the umbrella, that still need to seek out additional accreditation so that they do graduate with a specific accreditation in their field of study?
Well, there
Is that
are
another initiative?
There are particular ones like cosmetology.
Right, ones that already have it, right.
You know, I don't want to say, I can't, kind of like the computer one, you get Cisco certified, you get Microsoft certified. But what we wanted to do was have that umbrella accreditation. So we are now going to be as accredited through Advanced Ed as the Career and Technical Education Center itself, so that all the programs will have that accreditation on them on top of any individual accreditations.
Excellent. And then on the transcripts, are all the schools electronically able to communicate, or is that another initiative that has to happen among the other?
As I understand that they realized all the pieces were there. It actually,
we're good, right?
It'll actually save the guidance counselor from shuffling through papers.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think they already did the transcripts electronically anyhow.
Okay, so it's not a thing that the schools now need to.
No, I think I think it's going to be welcomed by all the associate districts.
Excellent. Great report.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
And just to piggyback on what Mr. Shebeck indicated, indeed, Mrs. Farthing and Mr. Reese and I attended a meeting of the associate districts. 8 of us sat with Dr. Roebuck last week and talked about career tech in the middle grades and what that will look like next year. Indeed, we do need to have a program in place unless we would be interested in a waiver. We are not interested in a waiver. And so we are internally determining what's best for Twinsburg schools and how that fits with career, the CVCC rather. And we're very interested in the Ramtech mobile classroom that could visit the middle school. So look for more information as those plans are ironed out. A lot of conversation internally and trying to see how the pieces and parts that we have currently in our curriculum at the middle school can fit into a career tech curriculum. And Mrs. Farthing is very busy working out all the details right now.
Yeah, and our role is to be more of a resource. We don't want to be the one that dictates what you do. We want the associate districts to remain as self-governing, but we want to be a resource if we can, because we have that resource available. So.
And I just may add, as a matter of communities working together, the Twinsburg Chamber of Commerce is having their February 24th luncheon on, with a focus on manufacturing at CVCC, and that's their regular luncheon. That's, I think, one of the first times they've gone outside of Twinsburg for that, so that's exciting. I plan to attend that.
Yeah, we're hoping that once Ramtech's up and running, that we can have some after-hours events, just in that environment, because it will be a clean lab grade type classroom. I mean, you're going to be able to eat off the floor.
I hope we have chairs and tables.
and they're still hoping to get a delegation from the RNC there, but I'm not sure about that at this point, but we're hoping.
That'd be great. Just a real quick clarification too, the requirement to have a career tech program, what does that mean, program? Like, does that just mean each student has to have X hours of?
You have to have an offering. You have to have it available. It's kind of like, I guess in simplest terms, bringing back shop class to the middle school, but we don't want it to be shop class.
Yeah.
We want it to be something more, ideally I think what will probably come out of this is a STEM focus.
Right, it's all in line with the College and Career Readiness Initiative in the state, and that starts with our smallest and youngest students, but particularly at the middle school, to make sure that our programming at the middle school is aligned with what is available for our high school students too, and that being able to provide a well-rounded opportunity for our students. Not all students will go on to college, but if not, we have to make sure that they're ready for those careers upon graduation from the high school. And that can start as early as the middle school in some of these opportunities.
Great.
We'll keep you posted.
Thanks for coming tonight, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, still in committee reports. Anybody else have reports tonight for their committees?
No, other than, February 2nd, Groundhog Day for curriculum, 6 o'clock.
Curriculum and technology.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and then for buildings and grounds, we're going to be doing February 3rd at 7 o'clock up at Central Office.
Okay, good. No other committee reports, Mrs. Powers. I'll turn it back over to you. I know you have Mrs. Farthing waiting in the wings.
I do, and Mr. Stuver, tonight's presentation about the next generation of assessments is extremely important, and this presentation is going to go a little long, and I've asked Mrs. Farthing to really take her time with the information. She's taking her time because she has a boot on her foot, and we're so sorry that she has an injury, and she's going to heal quickly, I hope. She's a very busy director of curriculum. But she has planned a presentation this evening, Board of Education, to provide our community with a glimpse of what our students will be required to do beginning February 17th is when the park assessments will begin at the middle school. This next generation of assessments is something as if you've never seen before. What we'll be asking our students to do and be able to show using technology and using the ability to apply the new standards to an assessment is something that's going to cause a shift in how we think. And our students have been very busy this year, and our teachers have been very busy this year preparing, learning in a new and different way. And we're not teaching to the test, we're teaching a new way of thinking, because what we're about in education now is helping kids to apply their knowledge. No longer is it necessary for students to have to answer true and false questions or multiple choice. In today's classrooms, our students need to apply what they have learned and be able to explain and be able to justify their thinking. And so this evening, Mrs. Farthing is going to walk you through the next generation assessments, provide some sample questions. I hope you do well on the test, Board of Education, and answer any questions as to how we will soon kick off the next generation of assessments here in our school district. So welcome, Ms. Farthing.
Thank you. Good evening, Board of Education. Thank you for having me here this evening. As you know, every time I come up to talk, I start talking in acronyms, so we'll just start off with that. Our first acronym that we're going to talk about this evening are some definitions, and the first one is PARK, and we've been talking about this for a while, and I have been talking about this. And last year, I looked back about February 11th, we had a Common Core Forum for our families, and this is similar information, but a little more detailed and a little more up-to-date as to where we are in Ohio right now. So PARK stands for the Partnership for Assessment of Readiness for College and Career. And those are going to be our assessments that we take in language arts and mathematics. And then the other assessments that we'll be taking are Ohio computer-based assessments, and that's going to be the Ohio-grown assessments that are in science and social studies. The overall terminology to describe these tests is the next generation assessments. So that's one way of referring to it, and then I've recently seen it just called Ohio's state tests. So, you know, we're getting away from the terminology of OAA and OGT, which was the Ohio Achievement Assessment and Ohio Graduation Test. This year, our students will be taking the Ohio Graduation Test, the students that are in 10th grade. And then our third graders will also be taking OAA for the last time. But other than that, we'll be talking about the next generation of assessments. Carrying on with our acronyms, we have something called a PBA, and that is our performance-based assessment. That is the assessment that our students will be taking first. Those are the assessments that are a little more problem-based, a little more task-oriented, and then our end-of-year tests are called EOI, or end-of-course assessments. And our PBA window will begin February 18th. On February 17th, President's Day, and February 18th, we're going to begin our window at RB Chamberlain Middle School. And then the end-of-year window will open in April. So those are the terminology. It is meant that the EOY will be more multiple choice based so that we would get our scores back quicker. We're not quite there this year, not just us, Twinsburg, but statewide, we're not there. The ultimate goal in the end is that we would have the end of year scores back before the students left. This year we'll get them in November, so we're kind of missing that then. deadline. But just for the future, that's the goal. That the goal would be that that end of year test could suffice as the student's final exam. So that's the goal, and that hopefully will happen at some point in time. Just to give you an example of what our testing windows are going to look like, this is for grade 9 and the language arts. So our students will be taking a PBA, or the performance-based assessment, for 3 days. And there are 3 days, 3 parts. Day 1 will be a literature analysis. Day 2 will be a research simulation. And then day 3 will be a narrative writing. And I will show you examples of those different types of tasks. And then when the students take the end of year assessment, there will be multiple texts paired together. For example, we'll have a literary text, a lot of informational texts, and then something with a history focus. So the students will be given really 2 pieces of work that they will be comparing and working with. So that is just kind of an overall picture of what the English language arts looks like. That is the same grades 3 through grade 8, or grade 9, but the minutes are slightly different, and then the pieces of work obviously would be different. But the PBA, the literature, the research, the narrative writing, that goes in line for all of the students that will be taking these language arts assessments. For mathematics, it's similar, and again, you can really fill in any of our math courses in there. So for math, there will be 2 days of a PBA, and then there will be 2 days of an EOY for the students to be taking. And then for science and social studies, at the high school level, we'll have an American history and an American government and a physical science. And then elementary this year is adding social studies for grades 4 and 6, and then science for grades 5 and 8 had been in place with the OAA, but it will just be in this new online format. To review, these requirements for the high school level are graduation requirements for our class of 2018, which are our freshmen. And in November, December, I went in and had the opportunity to work with all of the language arts classes at the high school. So I was able to go over what these tests look like. We did a practice test, and we went over the graduation requirements with the students. But and this has changed a little bit, but our students who are freshmen this year will need to be taking the English 9 assessment, the English 10, algebra, geometry, the physical science, American history, and American government. So those are the requirements that our freshmen are going to be taking. And then I don't know if you were following that the physical science test will be phased out, and the biology test will be replacing that for our students who are in 8th grade this year. And there's a lot of information that we'll be having on the website, and there are some caveats for our students who are taking who've had advanced courses that they will kind of be grandfathered in with a score of a 3. I didn't get into all of those nitty-gritty details tonight, but anyone can feel free to call me or talk to a building principal or guidance counselor, and we can help with that. Any questions so far?
Yeah, what do they have to score to?
At this moment, they need to get a combination score of 18. So the scores are going to be on a scale of 1 to 5, similar to the OAA. So it's really just, instead of advanced and accelerated, you get 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So this ultimate goal is that the students will get a score of an 18. We don't have it in place yet, but we have been told that the students will have to earn certain points in the subject areas. So if you're not good at math, but you're really good in language arts, so you could get 10, for example, in language arts, you're still going to have to get some points in math, but we haven't been given that exact breakdown yet. So we're just telling the students that to do their best, to work as hard as they can. And as soon as we get that information, we'll obviously share that with you, but at this moment, I have not seen that in legislation or documented yet.
And one other question too, I know you were describing the difference between the PBA and the EOY, and the EOY having more multiple choice to facilitate the grading and the scoring. Is the only other difference that, the EOY covers more of the year? Or is there another difference?
No, really, that is it.
Okay.
And there are still some questions that are a little more detailed in the EOY than I was anticipating, because the other goal with that was that the EOY would be able to be machine you know, scored on the computer very easily. And they must have some really good technology to be able to decipher some of that and make that work. And I'm sure they do. I just don't know how that works or what it looks like. But so yes, that's the main difference. It's just the content, and our teachers do have some blueprints that show the material that should be covered for the PBA, and then the material that needs to be covered before the EOY.
Mrs. Farthing, lately we've heard a lot in Columbus about just time throughout the year that students are involved in testing. How does that discussion that's going on there potentially have an impact on these quantity of numbers that we're seeing here? Is that part of what that discussion is?
That is part of the discussion, because all of you can see how many minutes that adds up to over time. And we've talked about this before, that we're not opposed to the Common Core. It's just the testing that's coming along with it that seems to be like a hand-in-hand package. So at this time, the state superintendent reported to the legislature his request and recommendations, but that will require legislative action. And I believe that would be something that will be in place for 2015-16.
Okay.
So we are going the course. Could happen, but I don't see anything happening between now and February 18th.
Okay, so any of those discussions and changes that might come from that would not affect what we're seeing here tonight. It would be next year.
That's our
Okay.
belief, yes.
Okay.
And then I just had a question about the tests in general. What is the general consensus from the teachers? How do they feel? From the feedback I'm getting from my own high school children is that the test is very difficult.
Yes, and we will talk about that, and that's going to be in some of
Okay.
the slides. The tests are really requiring our students to go deeper. And as Mrs. Power said, it's not just that superficial recall information any longer. It's taking the information and applying it. And you'll see that in one of the 9th grade samples, it requires the students to pull information from 3 texts. And that's a lot, and that is a slight change from what we have been expecting to do, but our teachers are working on that, and that's constantly what's happening in our classrooms. So yes, they're rigorous, and I think you'll see that in a moment.
And I guess going along with that then, if we're spending so much time on preparing our kids for these tests, because as I said, I'm hearing it in my own home from my own children, you know, is there frustration with the teachers as well? I know the children are a little bit frustrated. How are they, you know, can you enlighten us a little on that?
I would say everyone's probably feeling slightly challenged, but I think everyone is up to that challenge. And
Okay.
we're still teaching standards, so that hasn't changed. It's just the format of the test has changed, and it is requiring us to go deeper. So we've been having professional development on this since last school year, and I think it's just becoming more of a reality because it's less than a month away.
Okay.
So we've been talking about it, and it's been real for months.
Right.
But now it's really here, and you know, I think, and there is a little more angst, and as you know, teacher evaluation is tied to student performance. You know, it's value added for grades 4 through 8, and now we're talking about value added at the high school level, including science and social studies. So it's a kind of a game changer in education.
Just a couple more quick ones. Just to refresh my memory, this is going to be tied to some sort of evaluation of the district as well, right? The
Yes.
report card or whatever.
Yes, and the legislation has passed that the report, well, it hasn't said that the report card would be later, but we will be getting our results by November 15th. So you know, we always had our report card August, September, and that will be changing, that we will not have that type of data until November.
Okay.
Because they are going to be working on the cut scores, and I don't know how the other states are, what their cutoff is, but they need to do the cut scores and set all of that information, so that's why that will be delayed this year.
Okay. And I don't mean to jump ahead, but I know you and a number of staff members put a tremendous amount of work into preparing the technology for this test coming up, and
Yes.
you're feeling good about that? And
Yes, and we'll talk about student comments, and you know, we feel confident with our students in the technology. We've spent time doing the tutorials and the practice, and even the student comments, I read through them again last night, and we asked the students after we completed the field test last year, do you feel a lot of need for additional technology training? How comfortable do you feel? And this was with our ninth graders, and they felt very comfortable with it, and we are, but that doesn't mean we aren't doing some preparation. You know, we are practicing and going through the tutorials just so the students are comfortable with the tools.
I have a quick question too. I saw the minutes for the test. Now, are there cases such as if a student is on an IEP or special ed students, are they allowed, is that adapted for them, the time?
Yes, it is. There is additional time allowable per IEP accommodations, and Mrs. Trapphagen has been working on that in each building, and we'll be having most likely separate testing locations, you know, so the students don't have to get disrupted by students coming in and out. But yes, they actually would have the day to complete the assessment.
And then along with that, I think when we're looking at the computer labs, I think that I heard comment that if there was space available, if there's a student who maybe isn't really on an IEP but has a hard time focusing, and they may be able to use
Yes,
that.
that is accurate.
Okay.
Yes, and that's based on the building level decision. But
Yeah.
yes, that is an allowable accommodation. That's not it's not an IEP accommodation.
Right.
It's just for all students that, you know.
If it's
and-
available.
Yes, and
All
we
right.
do have the ability to like help the student remain on task, and you know, because that was not an allowable thing we could do with OAA, but now we can,
Okay.
you know,
All
just
right.
kind of wake them up. So I think this question has been answered, asked, talked about. How will the assessments be different for students? They are definitely high quality, covering Common Core standards, computer-based, interactive. Students are not just clicking A, B, C, and D any longer. Again, as we talked about with career technical education, this is all about college and career readiness. And those some of the supports for our students with disabilities and English language learners are built into the system. So there are different tools that are built in for those students. And we've been talking about Common Core for a while. But the Park for Language Arts is focused on complexity and making sure the texts are complex for our students. I wouldn't say that some of the text that the students are reading would be something a student would pick up for recreational reading. That's how I would describe it. And then when the students are answering their questions, they have to show evidence, and that's very clear. And that's something, I mean, we've always done that, but there's just a much greater focus on making sure the students are showing their evidence and where did they find that answer. And then an additional focus is now on nonfiction and just making sure we're having rich opportunities for our students to experience all different kinds of materials. So here's a sample question. This is a fourth grade. And this is the research component. And what this is obviously very hard to read, but I just really wanted you to get.
This is a vision test, right?
I'm not going to pass. So what this is the research simulation. And the part I circled was just that the students would need to read 2 articles, and they would need to watch a video. So with the test there are built-in multimedia items or audio for the students to watch or listen to. Down the road, we're talking about having a speech and listening component to this. That hasn't been developed yet, so we're just not going to go there right this minute, but that is something that's coming. But this is a passage about the horses on the island, and so there's 2 passages and a video, and then the students would go through and take the phrases and put them in how the horses solve the problems and then the outcome for the horses. So they will put things in the different boxes. So this is where an example of the technology enhanced. So the students would drop and drag each choice into those boxes. So this would be a 4th grade research simulation. So that would be on the day 3 for the students. And then this is an example for what day 1 would look like for the students for language arts for grade 7. And the students would read a passage from the Count of Monte Cristo, and then they would read a passage from the play Blessings. So again, we're trying to expose the students to a variety of genres. And then, for example, in this question, part A is what is the central idea of the passage, and then part B is what evidence best supports that. So one thing you'll notice is that there can be partial credit given to the students. So you know, they may get Part A but not Part B. So partial credit can be given, you know, because they might get the second best idea but not the best idea. So that is given in here. So and you'll see that there are a few questions that relate only to one passage, but much of the test is related to comparing two passages. And it could be two different types of genres. It could be a fiction and a nonfiction. So that's another item that we've really been focused on this year, is making sure that we're reading multiple passages to do comparisons. And then in grade 9, there are 3 passages that the students are working with. And this grade 9 research simulation is in regard to the bomb dropping. So there are 3 passages, a speech, a petition to the president, and then the decision to drop the bomb. So the students have these 3 passages, and then this is the first part of the slide. I couldn't get it all to fit. So you have each of those topics there, and then the students would need to go through and find out which things happened in the speech, which things were part of the petition to the president, and then the decision to drop the bomb. And it is not as if those are just pieces of text that are exact. They would be paraphrased and modified so that the students would have to, you know, use context clues and things to determine which of those passages would go with that. And then back on this slide, you'll see the 3 passages there with the tabs. So that's why we're really, you know, it's internet browsing, it's the tabs, and you always have access to those. It's not that and they are expecting you to go back and reread. That's their goal, that you go back and get the information from the text. So that is language arts. Any questions about the language arts assessments? Okay. Mathematics. Again, the park design for mathematics, the focus is on the standards. It's the Common Core standards. We have instituted our Common Core standards for 3 years. We've had the materials to go along with that. Last year was, or 2 years ago, was tricky because we had the new materials, but we were tested on the old standards. So we've worked our way through that, and now we know that the test is focused on the new standards. And we've talked before about how it circles between grade levels, and we're not repeating the same thing over and over each year and, you know, reviewing with the students. We're building on it, and but you can see the pathway between each grade level. And then it was almost like a bad word for a while, but rigor, and, you know, the things we're expecting our kindergartners to do are things that we used to expect our first graders to do. So it's just being moved down, and, you know, those are the expectations that we have for the students, and not just us, but that's the nationwide expectations, is just the material getting moved down. This is an example of a grade 3 end of year task. The library has 126 books about trees, and then in part A, the students would be required to use the drop down to choose the answer that fits there, and then they're required to choose again the answer that fits. And then in part B, the students would need to do a subtraction problem and then fill in the answer in the box. We are able to provide the students with scrap paper, blank sheets of paper. We're allowed to provide lined sheets of paper or graph paper to the students. So we will have those materials available for the students, depending on which type of test they're taking, which kind of paper they need. And then here's an example of a grade 4 end of year task, and I know that's hard to read, and your copy is a little better, and then this will be posted on the website as well for families to look at. This is about fractions. In part A, the students would need to drop and drag the fractions to add it up. In this case, they're not even trying to find the answer at the top, but they just need to line up the equation to make sure they're reading the fraction correct and line up the equation. And then in part B, that is where they would put the answer in. Some of them, they don't have to solve the equation, but here in part B, they will. And if you look towards the bottom of the page, you'll see that little gray box. That is called an equation editor, and that's something that I know my colleagues over to my left know that this is probably the thing I'm worried about, because it's just not necessarily intuitive to a student who struggles with math. So this is something that we're really focused on. I did the tutorial. Each building had a tutorial given to them, but I'm really asking the math teachers to focus on this equation editor because it requires a math mind, and I have it to a certain extent, but I'm not gonna. I definitely cannot explain this to an Algebra 1 student. So I'm just very honest with you. But so that's the equation editor. So if you look at that, the students, to put the fraction in, they have to go to the little box that looks like the fraction, and then they would have to put the fraction in. The answer is actually 7/10. So they would use the little equation editor to pick the fraction, and then they could put their information in there. So that's something that we are practicing, because if you don't know, our students may have all the knowledge of the content in the world, but if you haven't seen the equation editor before, it will frustrate you. So, we are practicing with that, because that's something that, that's a concern of mine, because if you haven't used it before, it just will surprise you. The equation editor changes as you get older, so when we move up, I'll show you another example of the equation editor. I called that one the mini equation editor. And then this is a grade 8 example, and you'll see that I wrote that this is a non-calculator portion, because there is part of the test that there's a calculator allowed, and then there's part of the test that the calculator is not allowed. And the calculator pops up when you're allowed to use the calculator, and then on the section you can't use the calculator, it's not there. So it's a tool that drops down for the students, and when you can't use it, it's not an option. So there's a whole section that is, and this starts at grade 6, there's a whole section that's calculator and not calculator. And then in this one, I circled the select each correct statement, because that's something that's new to us. You usually would pick the one right answer. You wouldn't think that there would be multiple answers that were correct. And then as you get, depending on your grade level, it will either, in the younger grades, it might tell you, select the 3 correct answers, but then as the students progress in the years, it will just say select each correct answer. So the students aren't given, if it's 3, 4, 5, or 2, they just have to select the correct answers. So again, if they didn't select all of the correct answers, they would most likely be awarded partial credit for those. And the last example we have is the Algebra 1 end of year. And then this has multiple parts to it, and the students would put in the correct answer in the top part. And then if you notice, the equation editor is much larger in this situation. So the students would use that equation editor to help them solve the part that's in part B in the blue box. Any questions about mathematics?
And you did say the students are practicing with the equation editor, so
Yes.
that by the time they hit the test, they've seen it before. And
Yes. Okay. And what will be new this year are science has been tested at 8th grade and 5th grade, but it will be online, as the other tests will be. So again, the problems, especially for the PBA, are very graphically driven, and they're requiring the students to go deeper. So this is an example related to erosion, and the students would need to drop and drag the correct terminology to the correct box, and then they would need to drag the correct picture to the correct box to show which picture is describing erosion and deposition. That's not right. Deposition.
Yeah.
Mrs. Sudarelli, what is it? I was? Oh, thanks. I didn't think that would fit. It seemed pretty legal to me, but okay, thank you. All right, and then we have social studies in 4th and 6th grade are new this year. So we have not had social studies given, and then this would be an example of students dropping and dragging, and they have the information provided to them. Again, this is not requiring the students to know recall about what is the capital, what is the population, what is, how many miles equal whatever. It's not requiring that. It's requiring, here's the students, you have country X and country Y. What are the industries, what are the goods, and you would use that based on the chart that they give you on the left-hand side. So. And then our student feedback from the field test last year, and last year we did a field test, we did some paper pencil and we did some online. We were selected to do that, and obviously we wanted to participate so we could get some feedback. In the student feedback, the reading passages are fairly complex and boring. This is from the students, I'm not going to lie to you, just looking over their shoulders a little bit, I would agree with them that wouldn't be something, again, they were going to pick up for recreational reading. Some of the directions were confusing, and we as the district had the opportunity to give our feedback about the test, and that was something I was very clear about. Some of the drop and drag, it just didn't make sense where the students needed to drop and drag to. So we wrote that down. The students felt they were prepared for the content of the assessments. It was very interesting. You know, we know our students are digital natives. They are on a device as much as they can be, but yet they preferred to take the paper pencil test. You know, they just, it's just their preference, and I like to write on it and make notes and things, and they do have those tools so the students can highlight. There's a little notepad that comes down for the students, but that was just one of their questions. Why do we have to take these assessments online?
Really? The students would prefer paper?
Yes.
I mean, I can see myself being paper pencil, but our students in
Yes, our
the
students.
world they live in today,
Yes.
I don't want to associate technology with testing.
I'll be darned.
Yes, and it wasn't all of them, but it was a very common conversation with all of the classes that we did it with, that they preferred the online edition. Just interesting, but yes, that was their preference. And then the students knew that the answer to question 2 depended on what you selected for question 1. It seemed like there could have been more than one correct answer, and I noticed that. And even in the practice, you can really narrow down 2 and make 2 for sure. You know that those 2 are not choices, but you really have to go back and reread to determine the correct answer, possibly between 2 of them. And then the students did not feel there were concerns about the technology aspects. And when we did the tutorials with them, the students did not feel that there were any concerns with the technology part. You know, they seemed savvy and understood. And one thing that this is very similar to is the MAP assessments. So the students have been completing the MAP assessments for a year and a half now, and so they're used to that environment. And the setup is very similar, that we'll set up test sessions for the students to complete. They'll have a username and password and to complete it, so they felt that that was helpful to them as well.
Mrs. Farthing, on that middle bullet, that there might be more than one, it seems like there may be more than one correct answer. You know, there's one that is better, right?
Yes.
You said that in some cases there is some partial credit given, so if maybe they picked the second best option, they might still get a few
Right,
points
and
for that.
especially if they're backing up their evidence with how they selected in the next question, yes, they can receive partial credit for that.
Okay. I've seen some testing in other venues outside of this educational environment where that's common. So that resonates with me, that, you know, yeah, it's more real world, I think.
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
I know we had kind of the dry run.
Yes.
And I would assume there's other districts doing the same.
Yes.
Was there any opportunity for these districts to share, or was there some collective feedback that you could look at from other districts, see if they had some of the same concerns?
Yes, and it was probably done more informally, but when we have NeoNet meetings, and we have been meeting on a regular basis just to really collaborate, and people who are doing the paper pencil this year are there so they can learn about it along with us and learn what we're going through. But I would say pretty much all of our feedback was very similar to what the students did. And Park also published some feedback that, you know, our students were right in line with what was said around the nation with the tests.
And it also doesn't look like there's any feedback about time parameters or constraints or anything like that.
No, and the practice test that we took last year did not take as long, and the practice test was less of the length that it will be this year. So we anticipate that the students are going to need the majority of the time to take the assessment. So, because last year there were not as many questions. And then to help our families who would like to help their students at home, we have on our website, we have under for parents, we have a parent resources. And right now there's information about the Common Core. We will put our presentation here tonight. And then in the next upcoming, I'll get to that in a second. Also, we have made for students, and we have Park and Ohio CBA readiness links, so the students can go in there from home to take the practice test, to look at the tutorial, to see what's out there. When we worked with the 9th grade students, they took the 8th grade assessment back before winter break. And then now we would anticipate that they would be taking the 9th grade assessment just so they could get in and see the content and the types of questions that are there. So we have those available. We have Park and Ohio computer-based assessments. And then each week we're trying to give out tools for the students and staff, and that's there under the resources for online assessments. And then for our families at home to help just continue to support your child with homework, I think one of the most valuable things we can do is read with our children. It's in all the research and it says it everywhere. Even when they're a little older, you still can read aloud to them. They can read aloud to you. There's just such great benefit in that. And again, exposing your child to a variety of texts, nonfiction, newspapers, magazines, anything that we can get their hands on that they're reading is great. And then talk to your child about what they read. I know my daughter likes to go read by herself and not talk about it, but that's part of the conversation, and that's one of the great things about guided reading that we've implemented. The conversations that the teachers have with the students are just so powerful, and I think that will really help our students be prepared to talk about what makes that correct answer when they do the assessments. And then math, we can continue to practice math facts. That's still there all the time, and we think that's old-fashioned, and yep, those time tests have been around a really long time, but 2 times 5 is still 10, and we just have to keep practicing it until it becomes rote for the students. Real life problem solving, explain the process, because and I think that's one thing that's a challenge for our families, is that we teach so many different methods to solve the problem, and then by the end of the unit, the students pick the method that's most comfortable for them to solve the problem. And what they're doing may not be what we're used to doing. Multiplication, my daughter comes home and does it in this box method, and I'm like, it's so much easier, just do it this way. And now she's finally getting it, but it just takes time, and there's multiple ways to solve problems, and just let the students explain their justification, how they do it, and if they're getting to the correct answer, that the assessment creators don't care as long as they're getting to the correct answer. Justify their reasoning and practice typing. That's one thing that we're so used to texting and using our thumbs, but having the students practicing typing is still important. And then stay tuned. What our plans are is next week we will send we'll have a Blackboard Connect call from Mrs. Powers, and then after that we'll send emails that will have a letter to explaining the testing situation in each of the buildings. We'll be adding this PowerPoint and informational news items to the district news in the upcoming weeks. And then RB Chamberlain is our first school testing on the 17th, and then we'll be starting, I think I messed up a little while ago with the dates, but Chamberlain will be starting on Tuesday, so all tech staff can be on deck, and we're all there to anticipate glitches, and then we'll start testing at Dodge and the high school on Wednesday of that week. Whew. That's a record. I'm really sorry.
I have just one quick question.
Yes.
When it comes to the links where they can do the students can do the practice
Yes.
tests online, when a student goes in and is ready to do that, will they give them, let them know how long that session is so they can commit to that time block? Rather than thinking it's going to be 15 minutes and it's
No,
an
it
hour?
doesn't really give them time, but it
Okay.
will tell you how many questions there are.
Okay.
And now the feature is built in that it will, is coming out that it will grade it for you, and then the answer keys are also there as a parent if you want to click, and you can print the answer key so your child could go in and do it. They don't have to finish it in one setting, but it will grade it for the students now, and that's a new feature that wasn't available when we did the practice sessions recently. So yes, but it won't give you a time frame.
Okay, but they'll see at least they'll see the amount of questions so they can say, oh, I don't have time for 40 questions right now,
Yes.
or, okay.
Yes, and there's a PBA section and an EOY section, and the fact that it's grading it now is very helpful, especially to our families at home,
Yeah.
because like I talked about, there seems like there was more than one right answer, so having that ability to check the right answer is great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
I
you for
just,
bearing with me.
comment on it's a very trying subject for both the teachers and the students, and you've taken a very complicated topic, and I know we don't know exactly what's going to happen legislatively. We just can prepare as best we can and move forward.
And right, that's what we're doing. We're carrying on and moving forward and just preparing our students and teachers the best we can, and we typically perform very well. We do know that this is going to be more rigorous, and we don't know what next year is going to bring, so we're just carrying on.
Thank you.
Well, I appreciate the continued updates. I mean, this isn't the first. You've, and Mrs. Powers, been keeping us informed last year, this year. I know it's changed, but I'm a proponent of this critical thinking, real-life problem-solving approach. I really think this is important, and I see it in real life out in the work environment, the difference between those who just, they can do math, but can they think through a problem?
Right.
and out in the real world, in the work environment, you've got to solve problems. And to your point, sometimes I don't care how they get there. I don't care if they get from A to B this way or that way. You know, we just need the result, and we need you to get here. And we just need you to be able to think through that. So this approach resonates to me, and I appreciate it. So, but I also appreciate your efforts to keep us informed.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank the team over there, because it's a team approach. And you know, if I told you how many emails I had Park in the subject, I don't know if I could. They just keep coming in. And so, but you know, it's just that constant communication between us and the administrative team, and then the administrative team and the teachers, and then to our families. So it's a team approach. So if I said I might be leading the charge, but we're all in this together, and thank you for your support.
Thank you.
If I could just say a couple more things. Mrs. Trapphagen has been hugely involved with helping us to understand the changes to assessment for students with disabilities and students who have 504 plans. And Mrs. Farthing and Mrs. Trapphagen have prepared a letter that will be going home to the parents of our students who have identified disabilities that will explain some of the changes to how the testing will be for those particular groups of kids. So if you happen to have a child who has an identified disability, look for that information to come home. The letter is very well written, and if you have questions, one of the two directors or the building principals can answer those questions. And then the missing piece here that has also been very helpful is Lori Slattery, Board of Education. Last August, you allowed us to bring on board Mrs. Slattery. She's a curriculum supervisor that works out of Mrs. Farthing's office. We could not be where we are today if it wasn't for Mrs. Slattery and also Ms. Mormon, who's the left hand to Mrs. Trapphagen in the pupil personnel office. The four of them, the two directors and their supervisors, have been so engaged in making sure that our staff, number one, has all that they need to be able to work well with the kids, and then they have been out teaching lessons to our kids. So to have your administrative team in the classrooms working with the kids and the teachers, they have pulled out all the stops, and I am so proud of the four of them and my principal team that they have done everything they possibly can to provide everything that we know is possible for the staff, first of all, and then the staff has really gone forward and done all that they can to prepare our kids. It's new. It's a unique situation. Thank you, Board of Education, for providing the technology. We have had an opportunity to practice with our kids. We have state-of-the-art in our buildings. It's fabulous. It's reliable. There are many school districts that don't have what we have. We're fortunate, and we have the ability to have our students take these tests online thanks to your support of that request more than 2 years ago when we started talking about wireless. So we were future planning. We knew this was coming. We put everything in place. We're as prepared as we can be for the test. And you have a team here that's worked really hard. And Mrs. Farthing, you're at the helm. This lady, I have to tell you, she didn't injure her foot because of Park, but we couldn't make a story about it. Honestly.
She was kicking, never mind.
Yes, pretty much. We were in a meeting when, but anyhow.
Talking about Park.
That's exactly what happened. But again, so proud of the work that your staff has done, and it's stressful. Everyone is worried about change. Our kids are ready. We just have to build the confidence. You are ready. You're going to do fine. Everybody has the new game in town. It's just not Twinsburg City Schools, and our kids are going to do fine. So thank you, Jen, for all that you've done.
Thank you to our team. Thank you.
Thanks, team. Mrs. Powers, you or Mr. Welker or Mr. Aho, anything else while we're under administrative reports?
I think we've said enough.
Well, thank you very much. Well done. Thank you, team. Moving on in the agenda, we're at remonstrance. I do not have any blue cards, as is our policy that folks who wish to speak to the board fill out a blue card. So without that, we will move on in the agenda then to item H, which is the treasurer's report and recommendations. Without objection, I will bring all four of these items together in consent agenda. Item H1, resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves the following meeting minutes from the regular meeting January 7th, 2015, and also the organizational meeting, January 7th, 2015, which was sent to the board under separate cover. Item H2, that the Board of Education accepts the following financial report for the month of November 2014, bank reconciliation, general fund financial summary report, and the financial report by fund. H2, that the Board of Education accepts the check registers for the month of November 2014. The total, including payroll and debt service, is $6,762,057.63. And item H4, that the Board of Education has updated the investment policy 6144, and there have been changes in the banking with regard to bank names and services. Thus, the Board of Education authorizes the school district treasurer, in accordance with Ohio Revised Code Chapter 135, to take all steps necessary to designate public depositories of school district active and interim money, and to make awards accordingly, and estimating the aggregate maximum amount of the district money to be deposited as inactive deposits over the next 5 years. Is there a motion for these 4 agenda items, please?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Felber, a second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Mr. Aho, I'm just going to ask you to summarize H4. I know we've talked about it, but I think you could do it better justice.
Yeah, every 5 years we need to go and do a depository contracts, and it's basically the banks out there that we put money on deposit with. They need to really update their agreement with us, and what it does is it says that because school districts really and public entities really are limited in what we can invest in, that then the public depositories, the banks, agree to abide by those rules. We can't go out and buy stocks and bonds and a lot of stocks and stuff like that, because you can lose the principal on that. We have to invest in things where the principal is pretty much guaranteed, like certificates of deposits. There are some other, like some things like that are like commercial paper. We can do some of that, but we kind of stay away from that. But the banks then agree to follow the rules. When they collateralize the deposits that we have, then they also put those like in government securities and things like that that are very safe. So they just basically are agreeing to what we have out there. And then over the years, too, some banks come and go. There was one bank in particular a couple years ago that was in public funds. They got out. They're no longer doing public funds. So, we can get them off of the list, and if that other people come in and show interest in being a depository. So we just need to update it. It's kind of a refresh, and Ohio Revised Code requires that we do it every 5 years.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Felber?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Kane Criswell?
Yes.
Mrs. Turl Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Stuver?
Yes. And those 4 motions pass 5-0. Next on our list is the agenda item I, which is action items regarding personnel. Without objection, I will read all 4 of these together, consent agenda. Item I-1, that the Board of Education accepts the certificated licensed personnel and/or contract recommendations detailed in the attached Exhibit I-1 as per dates, terms, and other applicable conditions specified, pending satisfactory ORC background checks. Item I-2, that the Board of Education accepts the classified personnel and/or contract recommendations detailed in the attached Exhibit I-2 as per the dates, terms, and other applicable conditions specified, pending satisfactory ORC background checks. Item I-3, that the Board of Education accepts the supplemental contract recommendations detailed in the attached Exhibit I-3 as per the dates, terms, and other applicable conditions specified, pending satisfactory ORC background checks. And item I-4, that the Board of Education approves the revised classified recall list as per attached Exhibit I-4. Is there a motion for these 4 agenda items?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Davis, a second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Turl Waldron. Any discussion on these 4 items? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Turl Waldron?
Yes.
Mrs. Kane Criswell?
Yes.
Mr. Felber?
Yes.
Mr. Stuver?
Yes. And those 4 items pass 5-0. Next on our agenda is new business under agenda item J. Without objection, I will read all 8 of these together, consent agenda. Action item J1, that the Board of Education approves and adopts the attached 2015-2016 academic calendar shown in Exhibit J1. J2, that the Board of Education approves the revised administrative personnel salary schedule as attached in Exhibit J2. J3, that the Board of Education approves the revised central office personnel salary schedule as per the attached Exhibit J3. J4, that the Board of Education accepts an anonymous donation of $4,500 to support the Project STAR, which is our summer reading camp program. This donation was sent to the board under separate cover. J5, that the Board of Education accepts a donation from DonorsChoose.org of New York in the amount of $253.44 to support the project Building Mathematicians in Kindergarten, being facilitated by our teacher Elise Hanna at the Wilcox Primary School. Item J6, that the Board of Education approves the facilities use lease agreement with the American Cancer Society of Dublin, Ohio, for the use of the Twinsburg High School Tiger Stadium for June 6, 2015, as per the terms and conditions set forth in the agreement, which was sent forth to the board under separate cover. J7, that the Board of Education approves a proposal for an overnight extended student trip for the Great Expectations Show Choir from Twinsburg High School to travel to Fort Wayne, Indiana for the Bishop Dwenger Show Choir Invitational from January 31st through February 1st, 2015. This trip will be paid for by the students with assistance from the Twinsburg Vocal Music Boosters. The trip request was sent to the board under separate cover. And finally, item J8, that the Board of Education approves a proposal for an overnight extended student trip for the Great Expectations Show Choir from Twinsburg High School to travel to Ellettsville, Indiana for the Edgewood Contest of Champions from February 7th through February 8th, 2015. This trip will be paid for by the students with assistance from the Twinsburg Vocal Music Boosters. The trip request was sent to the board under separate cover. Is there a motion for these 8 agenda items, please?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Felber, a second.
Second.
Second by Ms. King Criswell. Discussion.
I would just add that I think we're at the 15th Relay for Life that this community has supported, and it's a great partnership for a lot of different entities from the city's support and township and Reminderville, and it's just great that the schools were able to host that and encourage everybody to attend. School will be out, so you have no excuse.
And just from a logistics perspective, I think in the past we've seen this, and Rob, I think we spoke about this, instead of 2 days, it's just a one-day agreement.
Right, I believe that their intention, and this is almost a national trend among the relays. The relays have been around almost 25 years, and in most fundraising, things change, attitudes change, and initiatives. So a lot of the relays are shortening their hours, and I believe they're going to be doing a noon to midnight relay. So while we may not see the overnight camping that we normally would, and everybody can do 12 hours, so come on out.
And Rob, do you know exactly, I know you're pretty involved with it, who would people contact to get involved with that, or?
Sure, I mean, first of all, relayforlife.org would be the website, and it should be easy to find the Twinsburg site, and Michael Riegel Jr. and Jenny Dawes, both community members, are the co-chairs this
Great.
year.
Thank
So
you.
their phone numbers, as well as I believe staff partners, are up on that website.
Great.
Just a point on action items J2 and 3. We do have some revisions to salary schedules. This is actually just related to some adjustments and reorganization that is related to our transportation department. As per some previous conversations we've had with Mrs. Powers, we have agreed to some changes in terms of the positions that are there. So these changes to the salary schedule are simply to align with what we have already agreed to have her do in terms of the replacement of the transportation supervisor and some other adjustments both in the transportation office and that which affects the central office as well. And just a thank you, it's an anonymous donation and will stay such here on the mic, but just a thank you to the organization that continues to support our summer reading program, Project STAR. This is something that we see every year, so thank you, anonymous, very much appreciated. Any other discussion on these topics? Roll call, please.
Mr. Felber?
Yes.
Mrs. Kane Criswell?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Turl Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Stuver?
Yes. And those 8 items pass 5-0. Bringing us in the agenda to miscellaneous, do we have any further comments tonight from my colleagues or the administrative staff?
Just the request of the city, Mr. Stuver, to move the June 24th board meeting from this room. They are using the room for another purpose, so that particular board meeting will be held at the Twinsburg High School in the LGI.
Yes.
We'll make sure that that is on the website, but that was a recent request by the mayor's office. So we will gladly step aside and hold our board meeting across the street.
Yeah, and that's fine. So, very good. Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, we do not have need for an executive session this evening, so I will make the motion that the Board of Education adjourns at 8:55 p.m. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Roll call, please.
Mr. Stuver,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mrs. Kane Criswell,
Yes.
Mrs. Turl Waldron,
Yes.
Mr. Felber.
Yes.
That motion passes 5-0. The board is now adjourned. Thank you to everyone who stayed, and thanks for coming tonight.